This one here is the famed purple and teal ribbon. It represents suicide awareness and prevention.
34-year-old Adrian Stacy looks forward to a future he almost lost.
To live through it is an eye-opener. It has. It definitely set me on a completely different path than what I thought I was going to have 18 years ago.
At 16, Adrian felt his world caving in. His parents divorced and his father lived miles away battling cancer. Adrian stayed in Lyndhurst, Virginia, with his mother, a baby sister, and stepfather.
And one day I came home from school and my mom was gone. And I was like, where's my mother? And they said that she had to be hospitalized. She suffered a mental breakdown. Her stepfather was a truck driver and he was never home. You know, he was always on the road.
With no adult in the home, Adrian tried to grow up.
That left me to take care of my little baby sister by myself. I was her brother, her mom, her dad, until CPS showed up and took her away from me because I was under the age of 18 and now I had nothing left. My father was sick and living down in Franklin and I was all the way up here and I had no one.
Overwhelmed with sadness, one evening the 16-year-old made a dangerous decision to clean 2 guns his mother kept in the home.
And I hit that point, and I put a round in the cylinder and I slammed it shut and I turned the stereo up to where nobody could hear anything.
But somebody was listening. Instead of drowning out his fatal intent, the music caught the attention of a friend out walking his dog.
I sat on my floor and I pulled the hammer back and it wasn't a millisecond before the hammer dropped that I felt the hand snatch it out of my hand. And just as it went off, he walked in seconds before the gun went off. And it was just, I'm sorry. But he saved my life that day.
A short time later, Adrian reunited with his father before he died.
He was my best friend, you know. That man knew everything except for that. Because I knew back then, even just back in the early 2000s, that was still a very taboo subject to touch on.
Rebecca Texter is a suicide prevention coordinator for the state and studies stories like Adrian's.
It is true that the majority of people that have been interviewed after a suicide attempt have said they were glad that that they did not die by suicide.
I didn't exactly have the best hand dealt to me with mental health, and but I since then have bounced back, you know, and I have wonderful friends. I have an amazing woman, and it's just, life is really, really good now.
His fiancée Logan lost her uncle Guy Shiflett to suicide, and both now work with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention.
When she found the foundation, she realized that there was a whole community of people, not just survivors like me and her, but veterans, you know, parents, teachers, just an entire community of people who are all going through the same thing. I know there has been an increase over the past few years involving overdoses or suicide with firearms. One of those being Becky, who jump-started this whole thing for me.
This thing is a YouTube public service announcement for suicide prevention he made when he worked for a pawn shop that sells firearms. Lock and Talk is state-sponsored.
What we do know from the research on lethal means safety is that it has saved people's lives. That feeling can diffuse if there is a little bit of time and space between them and that means.
But Lock and Talk is only one tool in the intervention kit. In her role, Texter reaches across generations, teaching adults how to mentor young people and communicate with those who are struggling.
What I do is on the very front end of that. Prevention science is about building individuals' resiliency so that there won't be a mental health crisis. How to look for signs that someone is maybe on a downhill slope, that they're starting to feel more desperate or more emotional pain and feel more comfortable as a helper asking the question, are you thinking of suicide? I want to hear from your perspective. It is, I've seen it open doors for people. They suddenly go, I have that human connection again.
Rebecca's passion for intervention is born from something very personal.
For me, it's because I survived a suicide attempt over 20 years ago now.
But like Adrian, she only recently went public.
I was embarrassed, very embarrassed. Gosh, if people knew that about me, what would they think? Would they trust what I'm saying? When in reality, I started to realize that if I don't come out and say it, I don't know, just didn't feel honest.
Her unique role as a suicide prevention specialist and survivor landed her story in a recent issue of People magazine.
Yeah, I might as well just come out and say, hey guys, you know what? It did happen to me. But I truly think that an intervention, you know, a true suicide intervention would have worked for me. And that's why I teach this.
What Adrian once wanted to hide, now he displays daily.
And I got that because of all of this going on with my story, and I wanted something that I could look at and be like, I lived through that.